water in Jonglei State. Last year, the education cluster led by UNICEF and the state government initiated the mapping exercise to determine the effects of flooding on learning activities in Jonglei. The mapping, which covered accessible schools in 10 locations, shows that learning and school structures have been severely affected there. The UNICEF education specialist in the state, Duku Francis, says the UN agency is working with the state authorities to support schools. Francis was speaking to the media at the Panapet Primary School in Bor yesterday.
Panapet Primary School, as a flooded school, represents more than 200 schools of this kind that had been flooded in Jonglei State. And as education cluster led by UNICEF and the government, we are trying our best to see how these schools can be supported. One of the things that we have done from the cluster perspective is to map out these schools that have been displaced or flooded. And when a school is able to identify a new land like that, we provide some basic support to this school.
Recently, the UN Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs said over 630,000 people have been affected by floods in 27 counties across South Sudan. The agency stated that Jonglei and Unity were the most affected states, accounting for 58% of people affected by floods in the country. Upper Nile, Western and Northern Bahr Ghazal come second as states badly affected by the floods. And finally, before approaching the international news, the UK ambassador to South Sudan is calling on the Unity government to ensure the allocation of education budget in the fiscal year 2021-2022 is respected and implemented. In the 2019-2020 fiscal year budget, the education sector was allocated £960 million, just about 4.6% of the entire budget. In the fiscal year 2021-2022, over $500 million budget estimated has been allocated to the education sector. According to UN reports, 2.8 million children in South Sudan are still out of school, and over half of all girls are married before they turn 18 years. In August 2019, advocates called on the government to implement the General Education Act, which demands that all children in the country be given access to education. They said the budget should also help elevate the conditions of most young people who are uneducated and unemployed. John Baxter was speaking on the dawn as South Sudan marked the International Day of the Girl Child.
We all know that there is a real challenge here with the resources available. And to be quite honest, I think not enough of this country's wealth is allocated to basic services, particularly to health and education. We think there will be an improvement in this year's draft budget. Up to 10% has been allocated to education, and that's great. But the important thing is, over time, for that amount of money to increase, and also to make sure that that money actually reaches schools and reaches teachers. Because we all know there are a vast number of children still out of school. The figures aren't absolutely certain, but it could be as much as 2.8 million children are not in school. A lot of that is because there are not enough facilities for them, there are not enough teachers, not enough schools, and that's the kind of thing that we want to work with the government to change.
The theme for International Day of the Girl Child this year is My Voice, Our Equal Future. The International Day of the Girl Child focuses attention on the need to address the challenges girls face and to promote girls' empowerment and the fulfillment of their human rights. You are listening to iRadio Afternoon News, and now to the international news. My colleague Juan Mule joins us. Hello and good afternoon, Juan.
Hello and thank you, Yar Ajak. Now to the international scene. Kenya is set to disregard the judgment of the International Court of Justice on the maritime border dispute between Kenya and Somalia due today at 13 o'clock GMT. The two countries are both claiming a 62,000 square miles, that is 160,000 square kilometers in the Indian Ocean, thought to be rich in oil and gas. Kenya's border currently runs horizontally into the Indian Ocean, and that is how Nairobi wants it to stay. but Somalia insists its southern boundary should run southeast as an extension of the land border. Kenya first established this maritime boundary along the parallel of latitude by presidential proclamation in 1979. Away from that, the Ethiopian army and allied forces have launched a second day of ground attacks as part of a fresh military offensive against Tigray rebels. A senior member of the Tigray People's Liberation Front, TPLF, has said. Gatsuchu Reda said thousands have perished in the renewed fighting and the rebel forces are holding their ground and more. The rebels control the Tigray region and had advanced to neighboring Amhara region where the fighting is reportedly taking place. And finally, North Korea's leader has vowed to build an invisible military in the face of what it says are hostile policies from the United States, state media reports. Kim Jong-un added that weapons development was for self-defense and not to start a war. Mr. Kim made these comments at a rare defense exhibition while flanked by a variety of large missiles. North Korea has recently tested what